It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3, back once again with the princess of all the True Hills herself, the bottle girl of the True Hills, the host of SmackDown with the Lynches,
Hey,
Miss Krssi Love, and
hey.
this is season 2, episode 2, Dark Side of the Ring, and they're talking about the ECW legend, the hardcore legend, the original gangsta, New Jack. New Jack. Jerome Young, aka New Jack. So I know for someone that you really didn't grow up as an ECW fan, so you have a
Mm-hmm.
perspective from me as someone
Yep.
that did grow up a ECW fan, and I remember staying up on Saturday nights till 1 a.m. to watch them on MSG when they syndicated on MSG. Homicide was always the crazy black dude who his song never ended. They literally played the song throughout the entire match, and it was just nothing but violence, nothing but weapon spots, him diving off of somewhere, and yes, it got higher and higher every time. And this was like I started watching ECW around like 1996, 1997, 1998. So this was at a time where it was just starting with what they were talking about throughout this documentary. So to learn the before the time I watched that ECW, I think the most insightful thing is how this whole documentary started with his whole start into professional wrestling. I think that was the best thing. But my whole overall view of the entire documentary after watching it was just this man deserves a movie, and he just needs to go on the road and make money as a one-man show because he's just an incredible storyteller. Like he just finds the right type of humor with the right type of like sensitivity to certain things, and just under his whole perspective on life is just totally different from
A
any other
regular
wrestler
person. Yep.
or regular person that you will meet on the street. So, what was your overall view on the documentary?
I literally have New Jack crazy motherfucker. Um, I have he is probably related or someone's uncle of mine. He's that family member that you invite on the holidays that everyone is so excited to see because they always know that he's on 100 and they would like keep all the alcohol either away from him or he got a million and one stories to tell you he's never going to be quiet. Like he's like that family member that everyone probably has. Um, but boy was like very entertained by him. I want to say he is funny as hell. And every time I was just like, no, he didn't. Did he really do it? He was like, yeah, I did it. So what? Like that was his reaction to all of it. He's like, does this person just said like every person that wanted to talk to him like they couldn't like speak to him, and he was like, did they just speak to me that way? Like, no, he was just asking you just a regular question of how you wanted to do the match. Like, you don't do that to me. I'm like,
Nah.
what?
Because I got his perspective on everything. All the people that he explained pissed him off behind the scenes before he did something. I
Explain it to me
understood
then.
his perspective on anything. So I think we should like kind of adjust it as we go through like the whole timeline, like how we did with episode 1. So that
Okay, great.
I believe they started the whole story with like how he was introduced to
To
professional wrestling,
wrestlers.
correct?
Yeah. And
All
he
right, so
I don't remember the gentleman's name. He's like he was introduced by another gentleman and he basically like showed him he saw New Jack City, so that's how he got his name. And basically the person was like, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about wrestling. He was like, I like sure. And then that's when they got in the middle of like nowhere and met Jim Cornette, who was probably one of the MVP. Him and Sandman like the MVPs of this for this
this
episode
this
for me.
this episode, because I am, this is coming from someone that I will say as a professional wrestling fan, I do not agree with a lot of the views of Jim Cornette. I do not
Right.
agree with the man all the time. I felt that his contributions to season one, the Montreal Screw Job, was just a ploy for him to gain credit for coming up with it more than him contributing to the actual documentary. So I felt like he was the least MVP of that, the L MVP of that one. But with this one, yes, he is well deserved of your praise. He came up clutch because his description of New Jack as Eddie Murphy, if he was a bad guy and not a comedian, is the perfect description. After watching that documentary, that's the perfect description of Jerome Young, aka New Jack. That man is just hilarious. He's just an excellent storyteller. All of his stories just were directly on point. It connected with everybody else that contributed to the documentary. Nobody was like saying what he was saying was like a lie or that it was.
Every single person said, "Yeah, he did that." Like, yeah, they was like, even when he was doing his promo, they was like, "Oh my god, did he just really just say what he just said or whatever?" It was just like flowing off the dome. Like he didn't have to practice. Like he just was just saying whatever was coming out of his mouth, and anything to piss people off, to make them believe who he was.
Like that was the best part for me because like I said, I was introduced to New Jack in ECW. So to learn about his time in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I knew he was in Smoky Mountain, but I never saw the things. This was like the Sandman said, this was not the days of like for wrestling fans, yeah, they were like tape traders, but in New York City, honestly, if you couldn't find it at a Blockbuster or your regular VHS store, you weren't going to be able to see it. Exactly. And most of the time, those places only had like WWF or WCW VHSs. So you didn't have Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You weren't able to see it. So even though you heard, oh, he was here before he came to ECW, you couldn't really see it. Now with like WWF Network, YouTube, you're able to see these things. So I tell everybody that's watching this right now, after you're done watching this review, go out your way to, if you haven't already, after watching that documentary, watch him in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And some of these promos are just simply hilarious. And that the fact that it came off the top of the dome, that he just told him to go out there and piss
those people off. Yep. And OJ was, and he said, "Yo, congrats to OJ." And yo, we out here, we doing this. I was like,
we got two less to worry about.
Right. I was like, okay, like Jim Cornette, like he must have seen him and was like, gold, like ching ching, like he wanted a hill, that was your hill.
Like that was like if he wasn't New Jack and didn't have his whole perspective on life and the wrestling business and what he did in the ring, this would have been the perfect guy for like WWF or WCW to sign in 1994, 1995, when all the Rodney King stuff was going on, OJ Simpson, like you said, like they tapped into something that no other place in professional wrestling was addressing. And like him and I'm talking about the partnership between him and Mustafa being like more of the muscle of the team, and him just standing there and just looking tough. So he was basically crazy. And as they explained, Mustafa actually smoked pencil shavings that he found outside the building, out
and
back.
Try to get other people to do it with him. Like, no, why? And then that's when he got arrested because he was high off. He probably had other stuff besides pencil shavings in there.
like Sandman's like, nah, I always said no. Yeah.
Sandman said no, that just tells you something right there. Sandman said no.
Everything, yes. The beer swilling, a lot of drugs in his lifetime. Sandman said no.
Hilarious. It's just hilarious.
He was like, that's the line I won't cross. I won't go there.
Right. Literally have dad shot his mother in the leg when she was trying to take him away, and he wondered why and people wonder why he's crazy. He's like, he grew up around functional stuff.
I think that was the part that was the only part of the documentary where he really got emotional. Like that was the only time, and you can tell like that is the main experience, and his whole childhood is the whole basis for the person that he is today. He's done, and everything that he's done in professional wrestling.
And why he's like that? Why he just like can snap just like that? Because he's been around people. that just didn't, don't give a damn about what's happening or whatever. Like,
And if you didn't watch the after Dark Side of the Ring, the After Dark, they actually had a nice little story where he talks about his first robbery, where he first robbed a store when he was 15 years old. He was in 10th grade. He was in 10th grade, and he got his mom's 9mm from out of her room, and he just walked in there. He didn't have a mask on. He like thought to himself what he was gonna say, and he was just like, "Give me." He just walked in there with the gun, and he was like, "Give me the money." He was like, "Don't call the cops. I'll kill you." He was like, "Just give me the money." And he was like, "The lady." He was like, "The lady just handed me the money, and I ran the fuck up out of there." And he's like, "I did that for every week for like the next couple of years." He was like, "For all the years in 10th grade and 11th grade, 12th grade,
That's
all the way
somebody's
until I got
uncle
locked
right
up."
there, yo. Yep, that's somebody's uncle that will tell you a story like that at Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
Just because, you know what I'm saying? Like, I did that. Oh, that's nothing. What?
Uncle New Jack. Uncle
Uncle
New
New
Jack.
Jack. Yeah. Uncle New. Yep. I want to meet
That's
Uncle
that's
New
his
Jack.
new, that's his new nickname. That is definitely my nickname for New Jack after watching this, Uncle New Jack. So going from Smoky route, and he talked about the big money deal that he got with ECW,
And Jim
and
Cornette was not very happy about that.
yeah, he was not very happy, but they really picked up Paul Heyman as the genius for ECW. So I did like that they did that. It's a shame that he can't contribute to the documentary because
Documentary, yeah.
his connection with WWE. But I definitely did like the fact how they really picked him up of how brilliant and how the idea of ECW was this innovative thing in professional wrestling, because it really was, and how that time was like really fun for New Jack. He was like he didn't have fun in Smoky Mountain Wrestling with the fans calling him nigga and all
Nick,
this other
right.
thing.
All of them said that. D'Lo said that. He said that
Yeah.
it was a really controversy time. It was a controversy time when they was there. So once they got to ECW, they got to have fun and got to interact more and be those heels that they needed to be.
Yeah, D'Lo was with them during the run with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I love D'Lo saying that he was just the bump guy, so these guys didn't have to look bad. He just take the bump for
Yeah,
them and stuff. And then to see that D'Lo was the only one that made it to WWF in the career that he had. He's had a
correct.
great career, a Hall of Fame career, and he's contributed behind the scenes as well. So
Yes.
I think he was a great contributor. He's like the low key unsung hero of this documentary. His little stories and his like basically feedback into what his perspective of New Jack from knowing him personally was definitely beneficial to the documentary.
And he pleaded. I forgot what he pleaded the fifth one. They asked him something. He was like, "Nah, I plead the fifth one." That yo, like
What the
it's
pencil
something
shavings?
about.
With Mustafa smoking the pencil shavings, he was like, "I plead the fifth. I plead
So
the
that
fifth on that one."
means he know that because he had that smirk like, like maybe he smoked some of the pencil shavings. I don't know.
He was like, "I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna dog my boy." He's like, "I'm not gonna go there."
Yeah.
So yeah, they explain how New Jack basically came into ECW, and it's already an extreme place, and there's basically like no rules. So like every single night he had to like up the ante basically, and that
Mm-hmm.
brings us into the infamous mass transit story. So for someone, I know for you didn't know too much about the whole mass transit story. So I know you got a few notes, so you could tell about what was your like reaction to learning about that whole story.
First of all, the guy, the little person that was with him, I can't remember his name. But he was on he's
Oh,
supposed to be with
Tiny the Terrible.
Tiny the Terrible, yes. Tiny the Terrible was supposed to be with Mass Transit. And pretty much, I guess Mass Transit. No one knew who Mass Transit was. He just probably had like maybe like 2 or 3 matches, but no one knew that he was 17. And pretty much, he came and he, of course, went to go speak to New Jack. And I guess New Jack didn't like how he was approached, and he was rubbed the wrong way. Maybe your thoughts are different. I don't know.
Okay. To give the introduction for Mass Transit, he's a kid that had like a videotape that was like circulating around where he's fighting these two midget wrestlers, Tiny the
Mm-hmm.
Terrible and his brother. and he had like 2 or 3 matches with them, and basically Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman got wind of it and saw it and brought them into ECW. They were just supposed to have like a tryout match, but apparently New Jack's opponent, Axel Rotten, didn't show up for the day, so they needed a replacement. So they asked the kid, and even Tyler the Terrible, you could kind of tell that he still like it had some bitter feelings about it, because he said that Max Transit went into business for himself. Like he's only 17, he's lying about his age, and he just went into business, just basically cut him and the brother, the 2 midget wrestlers, out of it, and went in for self. And basically said that he wanted to be the replacement for Axel Rotten. So in this match, he's basically supposed to be a jobber. He's just supposed to be a jobber that New Jack just goes in there and beats the crap out of him. And even Paulie Dangerously goes to him, and he's like, "Yeah, he's just a rookie. You could do whatever to this kid." And this is like one of the main moments. Like I said to Krssi before we started recording this, every single commercial break, I legit started hollering, laughing, and this was one of the main ones that I holler and laugh for. He said, I told Paulie, man, what I'm about to do to this boy, they're going to talk about for 10 years.
And he said, we still talking about it 20 years. Yep.
He's like, it's been 20 and they still talking about it. And yes, still talking about it, because yes, he lied about his age. He was 17 years old. He didn't have that much experience, only 2 or 3 matches. And he went against New Jack backstage before the match. Instead of just doing his job, doing what he was told, he went to New Jack and basically said that he wanted to do like a couple of moves to him, and said, "Oh, can I do this to you? Can I do that to you?" And New Jack's looking at him like, no. And like you just,
and then he went out there with the intention of, he said, "I'm gonna fuck his ass up," like, and that's exactly what he did.
And he sniffed his coke, because he said he liked to sniff coke, get that adrenaline rush before the match.
And he said he was already high before that, though.
He was already high.
He was already high. Like he was high before the kid even approached him. So now he's even on, like, he's probably like in the clouds times infinity, and he get out there and just like the stuff is just rolling, and like Jim Cornette said, you're supposed to like wrap the stuff up and do like this and do that with the blade. He had an expo knife, or what it was called, I believe.
It's like this long.
Big, and he just sliced that boy.
No, because he tried to just cut him, but he wasn't showing any color, so he just cut him right above.
I mean, he was just leaking out. I was like, my mouth was just like, wow. And I mean, and then he proceeds to like keeps going at him and beat. I mean, everyone is just screaming, and he goes and gets the mic and put his hand, and he said, "I did this." I was like, yo, this dude is really. So he's
like,
really.
I don't give a fuck if this fat fuck bleeds to fucking death. I really don't give a fuck.
It's crazy.
Oh my god! And you can hear his dad in the background, like, he's only 17. Where's the fucking ref?
Yo, the ref never came to the ring. The ref was nowhere near there. The ref. He probably started the match and then he was gone.
And this is like, it's calculated on multiple levels. Like, not only does he tell Paulie what he's gonna do to him, they're gonna talk about for 10 years before he even has the conversation with them. Before he even pisses them off, he's already saying that. Then he pisses him off, and then he tells Devon, "I'm just gonna throw you to the outside and just stay outside."
And that's what he did.
He was like, "They beat the shit out. We beat the shit out of this."
Out of him. Yep, sure did.
Oh my god, it's just a crazy story. And then the fallback, he gets stretchered out backstage. His dad calls New Jack a nigga. He's
and he called the cops on him, and he's now arrested.
Yeah, like they call the cops on him. He's like calling him a nigger, and basically they sue ECW as well as New Jack. And a couple of years later, it gets into court, and they talk about the story about the court case and Paulie's testimony, where they asked him about
Tiny
Tiny
the
the
terrible.
Terrible, yeah.
He was like,
Yeah,
oh,
he was like Eric went for self and he was being selfish. And so he was like he just said the truth. He was like, yeah, he was experienced. Yes, he was ready to wrestle, but he
he already
he
knew what
fucked
he
up.
was gonna do. He's like, he
Exactly.
don't know. But he got to Tiny the Terrible said he was like, what's the name said? If you do this for me, I'm gonna get you to WWF at the time, and he sure enough got there.
Yo, he showed the video. He was like, "This is me on
He
SmackDown." He
pulled
was
the
like,
VHS out, son. Like he put
"Yo,
that in
he
the
had
VCR. Like,
every video of where he's been on TV. He had every
yo,
single video." He
from Jerry Springer to WWE, he had them all ready.
But that once again shows the connection that Paul Lee had with WWE even way back then. Like
Right.
that whole business relationship, like so many people have talked about it online. Like there was a business relationship from like 1996 all the way to the end of ECW between WWE and ECW, and that further explains it right there with
Yeah.
him winding up on WWE after just axing and testifying in court after this whole New Jack scandal. So yeah,
Pretty
his
much. Yeah.
testimony as well as Paul Lee working the jury and the
He
judge.
said there's such a work on them, man. He's like, man, I was just sitting there, just he said he was laughing and
He's like, Paul Lee's fucking crying, and he tells him, he was like, what did the father say to him? He was like, he called him the N word. So he was like, sir, we need you to say what the N word is. And then he's like, Paul Lee looks at me, and he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, New Jack, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, but he
He
called you.
called him a nigger. But he talked about it before. He was like in the jury, he was like a whole bunch of white people, and you had one 80-year-old black man, and he was
He's
like,
like,
he's
he was
falling
my
asleep. And
king.
wake up, you my savior, you my savior. And he was like, what's Paul Lee
He
said,
said
nigga?
that word.
This old black man. That was the funniest show. I started hollering laughing. I was like,
Someone's uncle. I'm telling you, that's how someone uncle would talk, yo.
this 80-year-old black man woke the fuck up. He was like, yo, everybody in the court was like, like all they all gas. I'm up there
Yep.
like on the inside, I'm just laughing, and eventually, yes, New Jack gets off, and that leads to him just running up the ante even more,
More. Yep.
just running it up. Like he had to go higher and higher with his dives. This is around the time that I started watching like ECW. Once the court,
2000. Yeah.
it,
I got
like
that one.
2000 when I was like in the deep. I was a main like I was like an ECW fan. I was at school. I was repping for ECW because was years in. I was like, yeah, I'm repping for ECW.
But
New
you
Jack is
saying
a crazy.
EC Dub, EC
Yep.
Dub, EC Dub.
I was like, Jack, crazy motherfucker. I would never want to meet New Jack. And to this day, he proved it even more with this documentary, and then seeing everything, and then that lead us to the Vic Rhyme story, which is like this is one match that is still an impact on his whole life. Like so
That's the reason
he
why he got the cuts in the front of his head. Correct me if I'm wrong.
the cut on the front of his head is from years of cutting his head and bleeding
For
and
color. Okay.
the he has brain damage. He has permanent brain
He
damage.
has insomnia. He said he has he's blind in one eye. He has headaches. Is all because of that one move that the guy didn't want to do, and he brought him, and the guy landed on his head.
Yes, because the guy was 450 pounds and he got up there. It was
He got scared.
if you want to look it up, they still have it on the WWE network. It's up on WWE network. It's
Wow.
called ECW Living Dangerously 2000. It's Vic Rhymes versus New Jack. They get up on the scaffold and he explains it how Vic Rhymes basically got up there. He was like, "We on live pay-per-view," and he's like, "No, I don't
Yeah,
want to
we
do it."
gotta
It's
do
all
that.
shaky. He was like, the scaffold's all shaky. He was like, "Nah, we're already up here. The fans want it." He was like, "You going?" And he was like,
We
"We
going on
going? I thought
three.
the three." Like what?
He said, "No, we going." He's like, "Nah." He said, "I can't go. I can't do it." He's like, "No,
He's
we
like,
going on three. You ready?" And he's like, "No, no, no, I can't." He said, I threw him over,
he was
and
like,
and you could just
over.
tell how we
He
landed.
flipped and he landed right on his head, which caused all that damage that you just described. And basically, after the fact, Vic never called the New Jack and checked on him. Whenever a wrestler gets another
Right.
wrestler hurt, if you're hurt in a match, it's basically protocol, but regardless of how the two people feel, just to
You gotta
call him
call
and
and check on them.
how they're feeling, how they're doing, making sure they're all right. He describes it as soon as he like came back to ECW and Vic Grimes was there, he went in the locker room and smacked the shit out of them. So from there, ECW closes down and we go to XPW. This is around like 2000, late 2001, 2002, and they book a Vic Grimes versus New Jack match, which is a scaffold match. And this one I've seen highlights of, but I never got the background of the why to it. So I've seen all these clips like the Mass Transit, the Vic Grimes, but I've seen this Vic Grimes match, but I never knew the connection to all of this. But
New Jack had a vendetta against him for one whole year. He was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get him, but I'm gonna get him back. And he told Sandman, I'm gonna go get me stun gun. Was it a taser?
Yeah, a taser.
Taser. He went and got, he's like, I'm gonna get a taser. He's like, all right, go ahead. Like Sandman was like encouraging the foolishness, like he's gonna get it and he's gonna do this to him and he gonna take care of him. Get his revenge, basically. Like, no, dude, like what?
Not how logical people think.
It is exactly not how and of course he said he was high again.
He was high.
Oh,
he had to sip his coke. He had to sip his coke. So he said he sniffed his coke. He had the taser. He goes up on the scaffold and he tased him. He's like, chill. I can't feel my legs. He was like, you're not gonna need them. And he so he like flings him and his leg like hits he hits one table, which is like a whole big stack of tables because they want to give him like something to land on from there. Hold on, I think you froze again. Time out. Okay, now you're back.
I froze? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay.
But we know it's around this time range, so we're good.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, he flings him off and he tries to he's supposed to land on this whole big stack of tables. But instead, he's trying to throw him so he lands outside the ring. He's literally trying to kill him, but he doesn't throw him far enough because Vic Grimes is too big.
They said if he didn't land on that stuff, if he really wanted him to not land in the ring, but he would have died. So he had something to land on, which broke his fall. But did you see how he fell off? Like that scaffolding, like first of all, the scaffolding looked like it was shaky as hell, like not safe at all. I don't even know how or who planned that, but that was like no sane people would have gone up there.
No, not at all. Like that was just asking for trouble to begin with. Regardless of who you had in the match, the fact that you had New Jack in the match, you should have just took it off the schedule from there. Yeah. But he had their personal vendetta. He tries to kill Vic Grimes, but Vic Grimes lands on the table, lands onto the ropes. Only thing out of all of that, he only like just breaks his ankle or something like that.
Right, he dislocated his ankle. Yep.
Surprisingly, that's the only harm of this whole thing. Like they had to like shut down the whole show because he needed medical attention after that. And like New Jack just ups the ante more and more because he's not in ECW anymore, so he's up on the independent. And then they tell the story about him versus the 72-year-old Gypsy Joe, who basically his whole gimmick is
72 or 81.
I think he was like 72, but he looked like he was about to die. But
like he looked like, and then he's like, why is he not like he's in the match and he didn't know like all about the dude or whatever. And
apparently they didn't speak before the match and that he didn't know that his whole gimmick is to not sell anything. So he's like punching him and the guys are selling.
Trying to give everything, and then he's like, I'm gonna kick his ass.
I'm gonna beat this old man's ass. So he beat the shit out of him. He grabbed a barbed wire bat from in the ring and he has him in the stands at this point. There's only like 30 people there and they're all like calling him nigga and saying like, this is like full felonious assault. Like this is not a wrestling match anymore. This is not a heel versus a babyface. This is a young black man basically because he's like in his late 30s, early 30s, but in comparison to a 72-year-old man, he's a young black man who's beating the crap out of this elderly man and with the bat. It just didn't look good. It wasn't a good look. And from there, he goes into Florida, and he starts working on the independent scene in Florida. Yeah, I think like it
Still
was a
working with low key joint. Is still like entertaining maybe like 30 people at the arenas, and he
but
meets this
and
other guy.
a low key contribution was the promoter. I think it was like MMW or MWW. That guy, the
Right.
black guy with the ponytail, who was like a musician now, who was a promoter of Premier World Wrestling, where New Jack appeared, and that he stayed with them because he kind of humanized New Jack, like kind of telling
Yeah.
like the behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
who he was to
Who he
him, like that
was.
he good
Mm-hmm.
cook, that he cooked
And he's
spaghetti for him.
funny. Yep.
Yeah, funny,
He's like, what's one
which
thing he cooked
you.
that was good? Spaghetti. I'm thinking he gonna say something like gourmet meal. He gonna say spaghetti.
that's a
Spaghetti.
that's a
He
oh
make a
that's
spaghetti.
That's what that dude gonna say. I mean, he's from Florida. He just like, I'm happy with a home cooked meal. Man, that's good. It was good. She made some good spaghetti.
Yep.
It was Chef Boyardee, but it was really good. um,
But this was the
and
one of the highlights for me. Once he's like he has the stuff in his he's fighting the dude and he's gonna like pull did the guy another guy like approach him wrong or whatever in this one?
that was him. It was the guy. He was wrestling. Basically, came up to him. He was in front of other wrestlers, and he was like, "Oh, I want to talk about our match and stuff." And he's like, "Let me tell you on the side over here." And he
Yeah.
was like, "No, I'll just tell
No,
you right
let's do
here."
it
He's
right
like,
now. And
"No,
he's like,
let me
no,
tell
let's
you." He's
ruin.
like, "Let me tell you on the side. Like, we don't need to tell them all of that. They're gonna enjoy the show just like everybody else. It's like there's only 30 people out there. Let them enjoy the show as well." So he goes in. He tries to break down the match with him. Um, like in the back somewhere, and the dude just basically disrespects him and just walks off as he's
Trying to
talking,
shut it right.
like he doesn't want to hear it, or like New Jack's not listening to him or something like that, and he just walks off, which New Jack takes as disrespect. So
Disrespect. Yep.
but he still goes in, it seems like, with the positive attitude about working the match. It doesn't seem like it's like the mass transit thing or like the Vic Grimes scaffold match where he has the intent to hurt the guy before the match. So he said
And
he
this is
goes into.
why he has the cocaine. And this is what messes him up. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. Rick James has said it to us time and time again. Like we already know this. And yet again, he pulls out a knife and stabs him. They said, "Oh, I stabbed him 16 times." He's like, "No, I stabbed him only 9 times. I
I
counted."
counted. I
Like
counted.
that's like that's okay.
He said I counted each and every one of them.
Like what? No. What are you saying? Is you stabbed him? That doesn't matter. That if you stabbed him 12 or one time, you still stabbed him. And you could see how he did it.
He was dead. You
He
can
pulled,
see him
you could see
counting
him
too.
taking it out of his
One,
pocket.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He was like, they said
Nah,
16. They said 16 punch rolls. He's like, I know it was 9. I counted them.
I know it was not. Like they said I did it like they said, oh, wrestler stabbed such and such 16 times. He's like, no, I did not count it. It was only 9. Like that justifies it.
It did to him. It did to him.
So this is what happens when you have cocaine in your system.
So so he goes to jail. He gets arrested. Like basically they report it like there's a
Right.
stabbing.
Yep.
But a black man stabbing a white man in a hotel.
Right. In the
Ramada
hotel.
somewhere. And they arrest him in the middle of the whole thing, and he goes to jail. He's in jail for about 3 weeks. In the middle of the whole stint, he gets
Like
approached by the dude. Yeah, you could explain this part.
a homeboy comes to visit him and he say, "Hey, I'll drop the charges if we can just like take this, on a whole make this a whole storyline, and we're gonna get revenge. It's like I have a vendetta, and I gotta get back at you, and we're gonna take this all across the country." He was like, "All right, sure." All he knows is that the charges was dropped, and he never seen him again. He got out of there. He got out of Florida. He left. He ran.
Because why? Why would I? Why? How are you pressing charges on me? Like you dead. Like you didn't want to talk about the match, and instead of working the match, you dead just punch me in the nose, and you
Yep.
try to work me. You tried to handle New Jack. This is in 2004. This is not
Yep.
in 1994 when he's just starting out in professional wrestling. This is 2004 when he has a decade of stories of him wilding out, going crazy, and causing causing physical harm to professional wrestlers, novice and experienced alike. And you decided, oh, I'm gonna try to handle New Jack in front of 30 people out of Ramada Inn. No. He had a blade from a Wolverine claw that he broke off. A Wolverine claw that had 3 blades, and one of the blade he had in his pocket. I love who was it? I think it was D'Lo watching the match, and he's like, oh, he's reaching in his pocket. oh my God, he's stabbing him. He's stabbing him.
And then they showed Jim Cornette's version of it. He's like, well, you can clearly see that he's looking in his pocket. Like, why is he looking in his pocket? Because he's going to stab a person in the head. So.
Yeah, look going in his pocket. Oh, man.
He says he wants to be old in a wheelchair talking about this with his cocaine.
That was the perfect ending. That is the perfect ending to his life story. Is him sniffing cocaine in a wheelchair, laughing about all of this.
Telling the same stories. Someone's uncle, I'm telling you.
I'm sorry. His whole reaction to mass transit passing away, I think it was just like 4.
Oh yeah,
he's like, oh well, it's not my fault.
He's like, I ain't did nothing to him. Like, they ain't got nothing to do with me. He died from like gastric bypass. He was like, I ain't did nothing to that man. They ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yep. He ain't died from all that lost blood. So okay, bye.
Yep.
Like, I don't got no murder on my books. All right, cool. Man. So what's the one word? Because I think like a lot of people, I think it was our Negro Buck Nick Jackson. He put on our YouTube video for the Chris Benoit Dark Side of the Ring tragedy, which is a very appropriate word to describe that Dark Side of the Ring. What is the one word as a description for the New Jack Dark Side of the Ring?
One word?
Yep.
Crazy. I mean, that's my brother. I said I put crazy MF on my paper when I finished watching this. I was like, yo. Okay,
yeah.
Functional?
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate one. Mine is damaged. Because he was a very damaged man that caused a lot of damage a part of his life.
He caused lots of havoc. So yeah, damage will be the one from this one. Yes, takeaway from this one is very damaged.
So anything that you want to plug before we wrap this up?
The funniest episode from out of all of them, this has to be the funniest one, for sure. Yeah.
But from season 1 and season 2, I said it on our Twitter that this is one of the funniest documentaries, and that New Jack is one hell of a storyteller. He's an amazing storyteller that is well deserving of a one-man show. He needs to go on the road and tell his whole life story.
And he still believes he's New Jack. Like, he's still New Jack. Like, I can't call him, but like, he'll be like that to the day he dies.
That was everybody else. Like, his whole perspective was him sniffing the cocaine in a wheelchair. Everybody else's perspective was they don't know but the difference between Jerome Young and New Jack. So
I think no difference. That's him all day.
That's perfect. So the next one that we're going to review is episode 3. That's going to be next week. We're going to review, it's going to be for the Brawl for All, one of the biggest clusterfucks in WWE history. So I hope you're ready for that, Krssi Love. So
I can't wait.
Check out Krssi on SmackDown with the Lynches. That'll be out later this week with a whole taped empty arena Raw. I hope the kids are enjoying that, and I hope they're rooted for good old Otis to win this Sunday at WrestleMania as well. Yeah. So we're wrapping up. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. This has been the Princess of the True Hills, Miss Krssi Love. We are signing off with Dark Side of the Ring, episode 2, New Jack. Until next time.
Peace.